Hello and welcome to Clipping In. Warm winter feet every time. Now, Clipping In is a cycling channel based in West Yorkshire and covers the Pennine Hills and the Limestone Dales, and as such the clothing and equipment choices are informed by that environment. I wouldn't claim that my choices are North America proof, but then it wouldn't make sense dressing for a Canadian winter when the majority of your cycling is in and around home Firth. So what are the challenges facing a winter cyclist? Well, I break it down into 4 points. There's lower air temperature, typically ranging from 0 Celsius up to +10. There's the wind chill, very important. If you're riding into a 15-mile-an-hour headwind, but you're descending at 35 miles an hour, you have a 50-mile-an-hour airstream, making the 0 degrees feel like -10. Quite serious. Also, compared to a runner or a hiker, the cyclist's feet are relatively inactive. They're not contributing to propulsion in the same way, and as such they'll get colder and stay colder. And then number 4, humidity. The good old British winter, the rain and the sleet. It can often feel colder on a wet day at +3 Celsius than a bright sunny day like this one where it's just sat on 0. Right, it's time for some props, and I'm going to take this inside. I think if you have the disposable income, if you have the money and you want to invest in a specific winter system, you might be as well going straight for a ready-made approach. And what I did in the mid-2000s with these Diodora winter shoes, you can see perhaps that they have extra insulation here, a higher ankle cuff than normal. They have no mesh. You know, there isn't any mesh that a normal cycling shoe would have, and they use, as you can probably see here, they called it Wintex, which is a sort of a generic version of Windstopper, I assume. You've got this elasticated ankle cuff, you've got Wintex everywhere on the foot to block out the wind. And really the only modifications I made to that, I blocked up the vent on the bottom, on the toe there, and it's ready to go. And at the time, in the mid-2000s, I was riding Look Delta, and I would have continued this when I came back after injury in 2022. I would have instantly gone to these things, but in the meantime I'd switched to SPD mountain bike pedals, and I couldn't find inserts for the soles to take that insert out for Look and swap for SPD. So I kept these Diodoras in reserve just in case I couldn't find an SPD system that worked and that allowed my feet to be comfortable. I sourced a very basic pair of SPD compatible mountain bike shoes, sun-dried make from Amazon. I think they were less than £30, and I bought one size up from my usual size. I normally take a 47 in a city. These are, I think, equivalent to 47.5, and that allows me to operate a layer system based on socks. More on that later. So they're essentially a simple, cheap SPD mountain bike shoe with 3 Velcro straps for closure, and that provided the basis for the system. The next thing I did was to coat the underside of the insole of the footbed with adhesive aluminium foil tape, the sort of thing that you can buy at DIY shops. In this case, I got it at a discount store. It cost £1. It's much more robust than using the sort of aluminium foil that you'd use in the kitchen for wrapping turkeys and things. This stuff, when you stick it on, it lasts a while. And I thought that could at least act as some kind of thermal barrier. You know, whether it does work or not, it doesn't do any harm to add it in there. And the next step to try and combat wind chill and provide a little bit of extra insulation, I got some closed cell foam, the sort of thing that you might use for packing a bike frame for transport. And I cut out some toe caps for the shoes. And you can see here, I cut out these toe caps, making sure that they didn't get in the way of the cleat. Unclean shoes there, authenticity. And then I also added good old-fashioned cling film as a windproofer to block up all the ventilation mesh, because this is a summer shoe. So once you've done that, you've hopefully proofed the front of the shoe for a little bit of insulation and windproofing. And then, given what we've said about humidity, I add on top of that a standard neoprene overboot. Nothing fancy, no real extra insulation there, but it just keeps off spray and splashes and a little bit of precipitation. Now, given that we've sized up our shoes, I've got a size larger than normal, that allows us to wear 2 pairs of socks. So what do? I really sort of divide this. I think if the temperatures that I'm likely to be cycling in are between, say, 5 Celsius and 10 Celsius, I will go for a typical merino cycling sock. Nothing too thick, but merino wool. That's my inner layer next to my feet. It can cope with moisture, it can provide insulation too. And then I will add secondary layer. I get on very well with sort of HJ Indestructibles. They're a very old British brand of work socks and hiking socks. I think they've been around since the 50s or the 60s. And I size those. I think they're made of nylon, the one that I use, and therefore you've got a synthetic layer on top. But if it's colder than maybe 5C, I bring in my secret weapons. And these are some Castelli windstopper socks. And these use a windstopper outer and a lightly fleeced, the camera won't pick it up, but it's a lightly fleeced inner. And these, I think I bought these in 1999 or 2000, and I wear those next to my skin. So they go straight on the feet, and then the HJ Indestructibles go over the top of that. And I've used these quite recently in a cold snap, cycling at -1, and my feet are comfortable. You can't really ask for any more than that. And I find that by switching, the layer system is versatile. Rather than going straight in for some kind of very heavyweight hiking or climbing sock that's merino based, I prefer to keep it light. That way you can change the layering according to the conditions that you're likely to encounter. It's important that when you put the shoes on first thing in the morning, that there are at least ambient temperature. You don't want to put cold shoes on and then spend the first few miles of the ride warming them up. And even in a centrally heated house, if you can afford to achieve that nowadays, it's important, I think, to pre-warm the shoes. And you could do that quite simply by putting a hairdryer in there and blasting them with hot air. But what I prefer to do, I take some normal kitchen long grain rice, I take some old cycling socks, put rice in each cycling sock, tie the ends off, put them in the microwave, microwave them up for a minute or two so that they're very warm, but there isn't a lot of moisture because you're dealing with dried rice rather than rice pudding. And then you pop those flexible, mouldable foot warmers inside your cycling shoes. Leave them there for 2, 3, 4 minutes or whatever while you're putting the rest of your clothing on. And when you take them out and pop your feet in, your shoes are pre-warmed. And therefore, when you get out and you get that first sort of thermal shock of the first few miles of a ride, your feet are preheated and everything has a little bit of time to equalise. So although I might have claimed, warm winter feet every time, it certainly seems to work for me. Like I say, in the recent snap, I've been riding at just under freezing, and I've been very, very comfortable. I was complaining that at 2 or 3 Celsius my feet were almost too warm, certainly on the climbs. And that's not a bad thing at winter for cyclists, because there's nothing worse than getting a prolonged chill, maybe on a 4 or a 5 hour ride where your feet are like blocks of ice. And then you damage them. You damage the skin. You can get blisters. You can get chilblains. And once those things start, it's very, very difficult. Your feet swell, and you could be left with sore, swollen feet for the rest of the winter season. And nobody wants that. So with the right kind of preparation, I think you can avoid the worst of foot problems, certainly in and around the Yorkshire area, in and around the clipping in zone. I think now I'll draw a line for this video. I hope you found it interesting. As always, any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will see you out on the Yorkshire roads very, very soon. Goodbye.